The message came on a Tuesday morning. Every screen on Earth displayed the same words at the same time. Television sets, phones, computers, and even old radios carried the translated voice. The Galactic Council was coming to Earth. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and now the universe wanted to talk. Stood in her office at the United Earth Embassy when the announcement played. She was 42 years old with short black hair and calm eyes that had seen many difficult negotiations. For 20 years, she had worked as a diplomat. She had handled wars, treaties, and impossible situations, but nothing had prepared her for this. The world changed overnight. Some people celebrated, others panicked. Governments held emergency meetings. Religious leaders gave speeches. Scientists cried tears of joy. But through all the chaos, one thing became clear. Earth needed someone to speak for all of humanity. After weeks of debate, the world chose. She did not want the job. She told them she was not special. She was just a woman who knew how to listen and speak carefully. But perhaps that was exactly what Earth needed. Someone who would not make promises they could not keep. Someone who would think before acting. 3 months passed as Earth prepared. The aliens sent instructions for where their ships would land. They chose a large empty field in Switzerland, near the old United Nations building. Construction crews worked day and night to build a meeting hall worthy of such an event. Spent those months studying. The aliens had sent information about themselves. The Galactic Council was an organization of over 200 species from across the galaxy. They had existed for thousands of years. They controlled trade, prevented wars, and decided which species could travel between stars. Humanity, according to their records, was young, very young. Most council species measured their histories in tens of thousands of years. Some had existed for millions. Humans had only developed space travel within the last century. To the galaxy, Earth was like a baby taking its first steps. Was assigned as assistant 2 weeks before the arrival. He was 28 years old, thin and serious, with glasses that he constantly pushed up his nose. His job was to record everything, every word spoken, every gesture made, every detail that might matter later. Joined the team as an advisor. She was 60 years old with gray hair and a sharp mind. She had been a professor of history before this. Now she was responsible for helping understand what they were walking into. The night before the ships arrived, could not sleep. She stood on the balcony of her hotel room and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, beings she had never imagined were traveling toward her planet. They had technology beyond anything humans had created. They had knowledge accumulated over ages, and they were coming to judge whether humanity was worthy of joining them. Found her there just before dawn. The older woman handed a cup of tea and stood beside her in silence. "Are you scared?" finally asked. Thought about the question. "No," she said, "I am worried there is a difference." "What worries you?" "That we will not be good enough, that they will see us and decide we are too primitive, too violent, too young." Nodded slowly, "And if they do decide that?" Took a sip of her tea. "Then we will prove them wrong, not today, not tomorrow, but eventually." The ships arrived at exactly noon. 3 massive vessels descended from the clouds like mountains falling from the sky. They made no sound as they landed. The grass beneath them did not even bend. Technology so advanced it looked like magic. Thousands of people had gathered behind the security barriers. They watched in silence as the ships settled onto the ground. Some held signs welcoming the visitors. Others held their children so they could see. This was the moment that would define their generation. Walked toward the ships with her delegation behind her. There were 50 humans in total. Scientists, translators, military advisors, and cultural experts. Each had been chosen carefully. Each represented the best humanity could offer. The first ship opened. A ramp extended down to the ground and the aliens emerged. High Speaker came first. He was tall, nearly 3 meters high, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His face had no nose, just two large black eyes and a thin mouth. He wore golden robes that flowed behind him like water. Around his neck hung symbols of office that glowed with inner light. Behind him came Commander. She was different from, shorter but wider, with thick green scales covering her body. She had a tail that dragged behind her and claws on her hands that looked sharp enough to cut steel. Her uniform was military, covered in medals and marks of rank. More aliens followed, dozens of species, each stranger than the last. Some floated instead of walked. Some had too many eyes, some had no eyes at all. Watched them approach and kept her face calm. She had practiced this moment 100 times in front of a mirror. She would not show fear. Stopped in front of her. He looked down at this small human woman and made a sound that the translator in his ear converted to words. "You are the speaker for this planet." "I am ambassador, I speak for Earth." Turn 2, he made another sound and his translator struggled to keep up, but she caught enough to understand. He was laughing. "So small," said. "Your species is so very small, we expected something more impressive." Did not react. Size is not everything, high speaker. "No," gestured at the ships behind him. "We have traveled across galaxies. We have conquered physics itself. Your species has barely left your own planet. What could you possibly offer the Council?" This was not the welcome had expected. She had prepared speeches about cooperation and mutual benefit. She had practiced phrases about cultural exchange and shared knowledge, but was not interested in any of that. "We offer ourselves," said, "our creativity, our determination, our willingness to learn." Made a harsh barking sound. Laughter realized. The alien commander was laughing at her. "Learn," said. "What could humans learn that would take less than 1,000 years? You live such short lives. By the time one of you understands anything important, you die and the next generation starts over. It is pathetic." Felt her team shifting behind her. She could sense their anger growing. But she raised her hand slightly, a signal they had agreed on. "Stay calm, do not react." "We did not come here to be insulted," said evenly. "We came to meet our galactic neighbors and discuss our future." Waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Your future is whatever the Council decides it will be. That is why we are here. To evaluate your species and determine if you are worthy of any consideration at all." He turned and walked toward the meeting hall. Followed, her tail swishing behind her. The other aliens went with them, many casting curious or dismissive looks at the humans they passed. Stepped up beside, his recorder was running, capturing every moment. "That was not diplomatic," he said quietly. "No," agreed, "it was not." Appeared at her other side. "They meant to establish dominance immediately, to put us in our place before negotiations even begin." "I know," said. "The question is why? What are they afraid of?" Looked at her with surprise. Afraid, they seem quite confident. Watched the aliens enter the building. She had spent her career reading people, understanding what they said and what they truly meant, and something about its performance felt wrong. Too aggressive, too theatrical. "Confident people do not need to mock others," said. "They came here with something already decided. Our job is to find out what." She straightened her shoulders and walked toward the meeting hall. Behind her, 50 humans followed. They did not know what waited inside. They did not know how badly things would go, but they walked forward anyway because that was what humans did. Inside, the great hall was already filling with aliens. They sat in floating chairs arranged in a circle. At the center was a single podium where speakers would stand. The humans were directed to a small section near the back, the worst seats in the room. Sat down and folded her hands in her lap. Sat beside her, his recorder still running. Sat on her other side, already taking notes on a tablet. "They put us far from the center," observed, "like we do not matter." "Exactly like that," said, "because in their eyes we do not yet." The meeting would begin soon. The Galactic Council would examine humanity and pass judgment, and would sit in her distant seat and watch and listen and learn. Because that was how you survived, not by fighting, not by shouting, but by paying attention to everything and waiting for the right moment. The right moment would come, was certain of it, and when it did, humanity would be ready. The summit began with a presentation about humanity, had expected to give it herself. Instead, the council had prepared their own report. They projected images and data onto a massive screen that floated in the center of the hall. Every alien species watched as humanity was displayed like an animal in a zoo. Species designation human, a mechanical voice announced. Planet of origin, Earth, third planet of a small yellow star. Population approximately 8 billion. Space-faring capability minimal. Faster than light travel, none. Stood beside the floating screen, occasionally adding his own comments. Each one was worse than the last. As you can see, he said, humans have only recently discovered how to leave their own atmosphere. Their space stations are primitive. Their ships are slow. They have not even colonized the other planets in their own system. Murmurs spread through the hall. Could not understand most of them, but the tone was clear. Amusement, pity, contempt. The presentation continued. It showed Earth's history, wars, famines, environmental destruction. Every dark chapter of human existence was displayed for the galaxy to see. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was explained with context. Notice the frequency of their conflicts, added from her seat. They fight among themselves constantly. Even now, with our arrival imminent, they could not stop arguing about who should represent them. They are divided by invisible lines they drew on their own planet. Kept her face still. Beside her was recording everything. His jaw was tight with anger, but he did not speak. Was writing furiously on her tablet, documenting every insult for later analysis. The presentation shifted to human culture. Art appeared on the screen, paintings, sculptures, music played briefly before being cut off. Their art is primitive, declared. They create images of themselves and their world, nothing original, nothing that shows true understanding of the universe. A council member from a species did not recognize spoke up. It looked like a floating jellyfish, translucent and glowing. What is the purpose of their art? Made a dismissive gesture. They create it because they are afraid of dying. They want to leave something behind. It is a symptom of their short. They know they are temporary, so they desperately try to matter. Laughter rippled through the hall, the jellyfish being pulsed with colors that might have been amusement. Felt something cold settle in her chest, not anger, something deeper. She had spent her life believing that communication could solve any problem, that if people talked, they could understand each other. But these beings had no interest in understanding. They had already decided what humans were. The presentation moved to human science. Images of laboratories and universities appeared. Scientists in white coats, rockets launching into space. Their scientific progress is slow, said. They discovered basic physics only a few hundred years ago. Their medicine is crude. They still die from diseases that any advanced species eliminated ages ago. An alien with a body like a praying mantis raised a limb to speak. How long do they live? On average, less than 100 years, answered. Silence fell over the hall. Then, slowly, sounds of shock and disbelief spread through the audience. To beings who lived for thousands of years, the idea of dying after only a century was horrifying. How do they accomplish anything? The mantis asked. By the time they learn enough to be useful, they die. They do not accomplish much, said. That is the point. They are a species running in circles, constantly starting over. Generation after generation making the same mistakes because the ones who learned from those mistakes are already dead. Stood up. The movement was small, but in the quiet hall, it drew attention. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the human section. stopped speaking and looked at her with those cold, black eyes. "You wish to speak?" he asked. "I wish to correct some errors in your presentation," said. Her voice was calm and clear. She had practiced speaking in large rooms. She knew how to project without shouting. Made her barking laugh again. "Errors. We have studied your species extensively. Our information is accurate." "Your information may be accurate," said. "Your conclusions are not." A murmur ran through the hall. No one had expected the humans to challenge anything. They were supposed to sit quietly and accept whatever judgment was passed. His thin mouth curved slightly. "By all means, correct us." Stepped out of the human section and walked toward the center of the hall. She could feel every eye on her, some curious, some hostile, some simply bored. "You showed our wars," she said. "You showed our conflicts and divisions. What you did not show is how we ended those wars, how we built peace from destruction, how we learned from our mistakes." "And yet you still have conflicts," interrupted, "even now." "Yes," agreed, "because we are not perfect, but we are better than we were. 100 years ago we had weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We chose not to use them. We chose peace over extinction. How many species in this council can say the same?" Silence let it stretch. "You mocked our art," she continued. "You said we create it because we are afraid of death. Perhaps that is true, but is fear of death so shameful? We know we are temporary, so we make things that will last longer than we do. We tell stories that our children will remember. We build monuments that will stand for centuries. We turn our pain into beauty because that is the only way to give our short lives meaning." The jellyfish being pulsed with new colors. It spoke, and the translator converted its words. "You seem proud of your limitations." "I am proud of how we face our limitations," said. "We cannot live for thousands of years, so we invented writing to preserve knowledge beyond our lifetimes. We cannot travel faster than light, so we built telescopes to see the universe from our small corner of it. We are not the strongest species. We are not the oldest. We are not the most advanced, but we are still here. We survived our own mistakes, and we will keep surviving." Looked at her with something that might have been curiosity, or it might have been annoyance. His alien face was difficult to read. "A passionate speech," he said, "but passion does not change facts. Your species is young and weak. You have nothing to offer the council." "Then why are you here?" The question hung in the air, blinked those large black eyes. "Explain," he said. "If humanity is worthless," said, "why did the council send a delegation? Why did the High Speaker himself come to our small planet? You could have ignored us for another 1,000 years, but you did not. You came. You prepared this presentation. You studied our history and our culture. You invested time and resources in this meeting. Why?" Did not answer immediately. He looked at, who looked back at him with an expression could not read. "It is standard procedure," finally said. "We evaluate all new species." "Do you mock all new species?" asked. "Do you show their worst moments and ignore their best? Do you laugh at their art and dismiss their science? Or is there something about humanity that makes you uncomfortable?" Stood up suddenly. Her claws clicked against the floor as she approached. She was much larger than the human woman, her scaled body towering over her. "You speak boldly for someone so small," said. Did not step back. "Size is not everything, Commander. I believe I mentioned that before." For a long moment they stood facing each other. The alien warrior and the human diplomat. Everyone in the hall watched, waiting to see what would happen. Then laughed, not the mocking bark from before, something different, almost like genuine amusement. "She has courage," said Tu. "I will give her that." Gestured for to return to her seat. The commander obeyed, but she kept her eyes on as she walked away. "We will continue this discussion tomorrow," announced. "The humans are clearly emotional. They need time to compose themselves." It was a dismissal, understood that, but she also understood something else. She had made them uncomfortable. She had asked a question they did not want to answer. She returned to her seat, and were waiting with wide eyes. "That was either very brave or very foolish," whispered. "Perhaps both," admitted, "but now we know something important." "What?" asked. Watched as the aliens began leaving the hall, was speaking quietly to several other council members. His body language was tense, agitated. "They expected us to be submissive," said. "They expected us to accept everything they said without question. We were supposed to be grateful for any attention at all, but we pushed back and they did not know how to respond." Nodded slowly. "They have a script, we went off script." "Exactly. And tomorrow they will try even harder to put us back in our place. The mockery will get worse. They will try to break us." Looked down at his recorder. "I have everything documented, every insult, every dismissive comment. Should we release it? Show the people of Earth what is happening?" Thought about it. People were waiting for news. They wanted to know if humanity had been welcomed into the galactic community. If she released the recordings, there would be anger, perhaps even panic. "Not yet," she decided. "Let them push harder. Let them show us exactly who they are. Then we will decide how to respond." The three humans sat in the empty hall as the last aliens departed. Tomorrow would be harder. The council would not make the same mistake twice. They would come prepared to crush any resistance. But had seen something in his eyes when she asked her question. Just for a moment, beneath the arrogance and the contempt, she had seen something that looked almost like fear. And that gave her hope. Because beings who feared nothing did not need to mock the weak. Beings who were truly powerful did not need to prove it by crushing those beneath them. The council was afraid of something, and until knew what it was, she would keep watching, keep listening, keep asking questions they did not want to answer. The summit was far from over, and humanity was far from defeated. The second day of the summit began with an offer. Stood at the central podium, his golden robes catching the light from the floating screens around him. He spoke with a voice that echoed through the great hall, filled with false kindness. "The Galactic Council has debated through the night," he announced. "Despite humanity's many limitations, we have decided to extend an offer of membership." Sat in her seat, watching carefully. Beside her, leaned forward slightly. This was what they had been waiting for. The terms of humanity's inclusion in galactic society. "We recognize that humans are a young species," continued. "You need guidance, protection. The galaxy is dangerous for those who do not understand its rules. Therefore, we offer humanity a junior membership in the Galactic Council." Junior membership. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. "Under this arrangement," said, "humanity will have representation at council meetings. You will be allowed to observe debates and learn from more experienced species. You will receive protection from external threats. In exchange, Earth will provide certain resources to the council." Raised her hand. "What resources?" Smiled. At least his thin mouth moved in a way that might have been a smile. "Your planet has materials that are valuable to the council. Rare elements, clean water, certain biological compounds found in your ecosystem. These will be collected by council ships at regular intervals." "Collected," repeated. "Not traded, not purchased, collected." "Junior members do not participate in trade negotiations," explained from her seat. "They contribute what is asked of them. In return, they receive the benefits of council protection." Was recording everything, his face carefully blank, but could see his hands shaking slightly as he held the device. "What about voting rights?" asked, speaking for the first time at the summit. "Will humanity be able to vote on council decisions?" Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Junior members do not vote. You will observe. You will learn. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when your species has matured, we will reconsider your status." A few thousand years. Felt the weight of those words. Generations of humans watching and waiting and contributing their planet's resources with no say in how the galaxy was governed. It was not membership. It was servitude with extra steps. "May I ask a question?" stood as she spoke, not waiting for permission. "How many junior members does the council currently have?" Paused several. "How many have been promoted to full membership?" Another pause, longer this time. The process takes time. Maturation cannot be rushed. "So the answer is none," said. "In the thousands of years the council has existed, no junior member has ever been promoted. They contribute resources, they observe meetings, and they wait forever for a status that never comes." Murmurs spread through the hall. Some of the alien delegates shifted in their seats. Noticed that some of them were looking at each other with expressions that suggested she had touched a sensitive subject. "You misunderstand the purpose of junior membership," said. His voice was colder now. "It is an honor to be offered even this much. Many species are entry to the council entirely. They are left to struggle alone in the darkness between stars. We are offering humanity a place under our protection." "Under your control," corrected. Stood up, her tail swishing with agitation. "You should be careful, human. Insulting the council's generosity is not wise." "I mean no insult," said. "I am simply trying to understand the terms being offered. If I misunderstand something, please correct me." She looked around the hall, making eye contact with as many alien delegates as she could. "Tell me if I am wrong. Junior membership means we give our resources to the council. We have no voting rights. We have no voice in decisions that affect us. We cannot refuse collection of our materials. And we will remain in this status forever because no one has ever been promoted. Is that accurate?" No one answered. The silence was answer enough. Stepped down from the podium and walked toward. His forearms were folded across his chest, and his black eyes seemed to bore into her. "You are very clever," he said quietly, loud enough for the hall to hear but somehow feeling private. "Clever enough to see what others miss, but cleverness is not wisdom, and wisdom would tell you to accept what is offered and be grateful." "Why?" asked. "Because the alternative is worse." The words were a threat, heard it clearly, so did everyone else in the hall. "What is the alternative?" she asked. Leaned closer. "Isolation. Your planet, alone in the cosmos, with no allies and no protection. The galaxy is full of dangers you cannot imagine. Species that would see Earth as nothing more than a source of food or fuel. Without the Council's protection, how long do you think humanity would survive?" It was meant to frighten her, and perhaps it did a little, but had faced threats before. She had negotiated with people who held all the power and thought they could dictate terms. Sometimes they were right, sometimes they were wrong. "If we accept junior membership," she said, "we lose our resources and our freedom. If we refuse, we face unknown dangers alone. Both options lead to humanity's destruction. The only difference is speed." "At least with the council, you would survive," said. "Would we?" Stepped back so she could address the entire hall again. "Look at what you are asking. You want us to give you our planet's wealth. You want us to accept permanent inferior status. You want us to be grateful for the privilege of serving you. That is not survival. That is surrender." The hall was completely silent now. Every being in the room was focused on the small human woman standing alone in the center. "I need to speak with my team," said. "We need time to consider this offer." Nodded graciously. "Of course, we will recess for 1 hour. But understand, Ambassador, this offer will not be extended again. Accept it today or face the consequences tomorrow." Gathered her delegation and led them to a small room adjacent to the main hall. As soon as the door closed behind them, the calm mask she had been wearing cracked. "They want to strip mine our planet," said, his voice tight with anger. "They want to take everything and give us nothing." "And there is nothing we can do to stop them," another delegate added. "We have no fleet, no weapons that could touch their ships. If they want to take our resources, they will take them whether we agree or not." "Then why ask?" said thoughtfully. If they can simply take what they want, why go through this performance? Everyone looked at her. The old professor adjusted her glasses and continued. The Council controls 200 species. Their authority depends on legitimacy, on the appearance of fairness and proper procedure. If they simply invaded Earth and took what they wanted, other species might question them, might wonder if they would be next. So they need us to agree, said slowly. They need humanity to accept junior membership willingly. That way, everything they take is legal. Everything they do to us is justified. Exactly. Our consent protects them from criticism. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council was not just greedy. They were afraid. Afraid of what would happen if they were seen as tyrants. Afraid of what their own members might do if they acted too openly cruel. There are other junior members, said. Species who have been in that status for thousands of years, giving their resources and receiving nothing in return. How do they feel about the Council? Probably angry, said, probably resentful. And if they saw another species refuse, if they saw someone stand up and say no? His eyes widened. They might start asking questions themselves. They might start demanding better treatment. The Council's power depends on everyone accepting the system, said. If we refuse, we are not just rejecting an unfair deal. We are showing the entire galaxy that it is possible to say no. But they will destroy us, a military advisor spoke up. They have the power to wipe us out. Do they? Asked. I am not sure. I think if they could, they would have done it already. Instead, they are trying to make us submit willingly. That means something. The hour passed quickly. When they returned to the main hall, was waiting at the podium with an expectant expression. Have you decided? He asked. Walked to the center of the hall and stood where she had stood before. She looked at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. We have questions, she said. His expression flickered. Questions. Before we make our decision, we need to understand something. You said junior members contribute resources. How much? How often? What happens if a planet's resources are depleted? These are administrative details, said. They would be determined after you accept. So we would agree before knowing the full terms. It is standard procedure. Nodded slowly. I see. And the protection you mentioned, what exactly does that include? If Earth is attacked, will the Council send ships to defend us? How many? How quickly? Protection is guaranteed, said. His voice was becoming strained. The specifics would depend on the situation. So there are no specific guarantees, just promises. Are you questioning the Council's word? Demanded, rising from her seat again. I am trying to understand what we would be agreeing to, said. So far, I have heard demands but no specifics, promises but no guarantees, threats but no explanations. If this is how the Council treats potential members, I am not surprised no junior member has ever been promoted. The hall erupted. Aliens shouted in languages her translator could not keep up with. Some seemed angry, others seemed almost excited, looked ready to attack, held back only by a gesture from. Raised all four hands, and slowly the hall quieted. Ambassador, he said, his voice ice cold. You have one final chance. Accept the offer of junior membership or face the consequences. There will be no more discussion, no more questions. Decide now. Looked at her team. They were scared. She could see it in their faces, but she also saw something else. Trust. They were waiting for her to lead them wherever that might go. She turned back to. I need one more day, she said. Earth deserves that much before we make a decision that will affect all of humanity. Stared at her for a long moment, then finally he nodded. One day, tomorrow, you will give your answer, and tomorrow you will learn what happens to species who do not know their place. He turned and walked away, followed by the other council leaders. The summit was adjourned. But tomorrow was coming, and knew that whatever she decided, nothing would ever be the same. Did not sleep that night. She sat in her hotel room going over everything they knew, the recordings, the documents, the subtle reactions of different alien species during the summit. There had to be something they were missing, some angle they had not considered. "We cannot win by force," said for the 100th time. "We do not have ships or weapons that could challenge them." "We cannot win by negotiation either," added. "They have no interest in fair terms. They want submission, nothing else." Stared at the ceiling. Her mind kept returning to the same question. Why did the Council need their consent? With all their power, why did they care what humanity thought? "What if we do not play their game?" she said quietly. Looked up. "What do you mean?" "They expect us to argue, to negotiate, to beg for better terms, or they expect us to accept out of fear. Those are the only options they understand. What if we do something else entirely?" "Like what?" asked. Sat up slowly. An idea was forming in her mind, dangerous, possibly foolish, but it felt right in a way she could not explain. "We walk away," she said, and stared at her. "We do not accept, we do not refuse, we do not argue or negotiate, we simply stand up and leave, without a word." "They will be furious," said. "Yes. They might attack us on the spot." "They might, but I do not think they will." Shook his head. "I do not understand. What does walking away accomplish? They will still be there, the threat will still exist." Leaned forward. "Think about it from their perspective. They have spent thousands of years building this system. Species come to them, accept their terms, and become junior members. It is routine, expected. The Council maintains its power because everyone plays by their rules." "And if we do not play," said slowly, "then we break the routine. We show every species in that hall that there is another option, not fighting, not surrendering, just refusing to participate in a game that is designed to make us lose." The room fell silent. Outside, the first light of dawn was beginning to show on the horizon. "It is a risk," finally said, "a huge risk." "I know. If it fails, we could be dooming our entire species." "I know." Took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. She looked older than she had a few days ago. The weight of the situation was heavy on all of them. "But if it works," she said quietly, "we change everything." "Yes." Stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the sky, where alien ships still hung like mountains over the earth. "I always wondered what it would feel like," he said, "to be part of something historic, to be there when the world changed." He turned back to, "I did not expect it to be this terrifying." "Neither did I," admitted. They spent the remaining hours preparing, not speeches or arguments, just themselves. They talked about their families, their hopes for the future, the things they would miss if everything went wrong. When the time came to leave for the summit, all 50 members of the human delegation gathered in the lobby of the hotel, looked at their faces. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, ordinary people who had been chosen to represent all of humanity. "You know what we are going to do," she said. "You know the risks. I will not order anyone to follow me. If you want to stay here, no one will blame you." No one moved. Felt something warm in her chest, pride maybe, or love. These people had every reason to be afraid, but they were standing with her anyway. "Thank you," she said. "Whatever happens today, I am honored to stand beside you." They walked to the summit in silence. The streets were empty. The crowds that had gathered for the arrival were gone, kept away by security forces. It felt like walking through a ghost town. The great hall was full when they arrived. Every alien delegate was in their seat, watching as the humans entered. Stood at the central podium, his golden robes gleaming. Sat nearby, her claws tapping impatiently on the arm of her chair. "Welcome back," said. His voice carried a dangerous edge. "I trust you have made your decision." Did not go to her seat. She walked directly to the center of the hall where all eyes could see her. Her delegation followed, forming a quiet line behind her. Ambassador said, "The Galactic Council awaits your answer. Do you accept junior membership, or do you choose to face the consequences of refusal?" Looked at him. She looked at. She looked at the hundreds of alien faces watching her with curiosity, contempt, and something that might have been hope. She said nothing. For a long moment the hall was perfectly still, waited for her response. The aliens waited, everyone waited. Turned around. She did not speak. She did not explain. She simply turned her back on the high speaker of the Galactic Council and began walking toward the exit. Behind her, 50 humans turned as well. One by one, they followed their ambassador. Their footsteps echoed in the silent hall. "What is this?" His voice was sharp with confusion. "Ambassador, answer me." Did not look back. "You cannot simply leave," shouted. "There are protocols, procedures. You must respond to the Council's offer." Still she walked, step after step, moving toward the great doors at the end of the hall. "Jump to her feet. Stop them," she commanded. Guards moved toward the humans, large aliens with weapons that could kill with a touch. They positioned themselves between the delegation and the exit. Stopped walking. The guards stood in front of her, blocking the way. Behind her, she could hear the shocked murmurs of the alien delegates. For a moment, no one moved. Then simply walked forward again, toward the guards, toward the weapons pointed at her chest. Her face showed no fear, no anger, just quiet determination. The guards looked at each other. They looked at the small human woman walking toward them as if they did not exist. One by one, they stepped aside. The great doors opened. Sunlight poured into the hall, bright and warm, walked through them without looking back. Her delegation followed. Behind them, the hall erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted and argued, was demanding explanations, was screaming orders that no one followed. But the humans heard none of it. They walked out into the light and did not stop until they reached the field where they had first met the Council ships. Only then did turn around. Only then did she allow herself to feel the enormity of what they had done. Was beside her, his recorder still running. "That was either the bravest thing I have ever seen," he said, "or the craziest." "Perhaps both," said. Her voice was shaking now. The mask of calm was finally cracking. Appeared at her other side. The old professor had tears in her eyes. "They did not stop us," she whispered. "They could have killed us all, and they did not." "No," agreed, "they did not." From the meeting hall they could hear the continuing sounds of chaos, but no one came after them. No weapons fired. No ships descended from the sky. "What happens now?" asked. Looked up at the alien ships still hovering over Earth. They seemed smaller somehow, less threatening. Just machines built by beings who were scared of a species they had called primitive and weak. "Now we wait," she said, "and we see what they do next." The humans stood in the field as the sun rose higher. They had rejected the most powerful organization in the galaxy. They had turned their backs on beings who could destroy them with a thought. They had done the one thing no species had ever done before. They had said no, not with words, not with weapons, just with silence and the simple act of walking away. And somehow, impossibly, they were still alive. In the hall, stood at his podium, surrounded by shouting delegates. His hands were trembling. His black eyes were wide with something no one had ever seen in him before. He was afraid. Not of humans, not of their tiny planet or their primitive technology. He was afraid of what would happen when word of this spread, when other species heard that someone had finally refused to play the Council's game. The galaxy was watching, and nothing would ever be the same. The Council ships left Earth 3 days after the walkout. They rose into the sky without warning and disappeared into the darkness between stars. No announcement, no threats, no final demands. They simply left. watched them go from the balcony of her hotel room, stood beside her, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. "What do you think it means?" asked. "I do not know," admitted. "Maybe they are regrouping, planning their next move, or maybe they are hoping we will change our minds." "Will we?" Shook her head slowly. "We cannot. After what happened, going back would destroy everything we accomplished. We showed the galaxy that saying no is possible. If we crawl back now, that message dies." The days that followed were strange. Earth was alone in a way it had never been before. No aliens in the sky. No council representatives making demands. Just silence from the stars. Some people panicked. They said it had doomed humanity. They said the council would return with weapons and wipe them out. Protests formed outside the embassy. Angry voices demanded her resignation. But other voices rose to defend what she had done. Scientists who had been studying the council's behavior analyzed the situation. Military experts pointed out that if the council wanted to destroy Earth, they would have done it already. Something was stopping them. Release the recordings. Every insult, every dismissive comment, every threat thinly disguised as generosity. People around the world watched and listened to how their representatives had been treated, the mockery of their art, the contempt for their short lives, the cruel laughter. Public opinion shifted. The anger turned away from and toward the council. Humanity had not rejected a fair offer. They had rejected slavery dressed in pretty words. 2 weeks after the ships departed, something unexpected happened. A message arrived from space, not from the council, from someone else. Was in her office when burst through the door. His face was pale and excited at the same time. "Ambassador, you need to see this." The message was video, watched as an alien face appeared on her screen. It was a species she had seen in the Great Hall but did not know well. They looked like tall birds with feathered bodies and sharp beaks. Large golden eyes stared into the camera. "People of Earth," the alien said through a translator. "My name is, I speak for a species that has been a junior member of the Galactic Council for 12,000 years." Leaned forward. "We watched your summit," continued. "We watched your ambassador stand before the high speaker and ask the questions we were afraid to ask. We watched her turn her back and walk away. And for the first time in our history, we felt something we had forgotten was possible. Hope." The message continued. Explained that they had been under the council's control for so long that they had stopped imagining any other way to live. They paid their tribute. They followed the rules. They accepted their place because they believed there was no alternative. "But you showed us there is," said. "You showed us that refusing to participate is an option, that walking away with dignity is better than kneeling in shame." Other messages followed, not just from dozens of species, hundreds. Junior members who had been silent for thousands of years were suddenly speaking up, sharing their stories, describing the resources taken from their worlds, the promises that were never kept, the hope that had slowly been crushed over countless generations. Compiled the messages into a report. "They are not asking us for help," she said. "Not yet. They are just reaching out, making contact, letting us know we are not alone." "The council must be furious," said. "Yes," agreed. "They are losing control of the story. They wanted everyone to see us as foolish and primitive. Instead, we became a symbol, something they cannot easily destroy." A month passed. Then, too, Earth remained silent and watchful. The council made no official statements, but through back channels messages arrived, warnings dressed as concerns, suggestions that humanity reconsider its position. Each time responded the same way. She did not respond at all. They were the first to take action. Their representative announced that they were requesting a review of their junior membership status. They wanted to negotiate for better terms, or they wanted out. The council rejected the request. Standard procedure, they said. Junior members could not renegotiate. But did not stop. She broadcast her request to every species with a communication system. She shared the details of what junior membership really meant, the resources taken, the rights, the eternal wait for a promotion that never came. Other species joined her. One by one, junior members began demanding change. The council tried to silence them, threatened them with consequences, but the voices kept growing. 6 months after walked out of the summit, the Galactic Council faced something it had never faced before. A rebellion, not of weapons and warships, a rebellion of words and ideas. Species that had been obedient were suddenly asking why. Why must they accept inferior status forever? Why must they give their resources without fair compensation? Why must they obey beings who laughed at their cultures and dismissed their contributions? Called an emergency session of the council. He demanded that the full members take action against this growing unrest. But even among the powerful species, there were doubts. Some began to wonder if perhaps the system needed reform, if perhaps humanity had exposed cracks that had been growing for a long time. A year after the walkout, a delegation arrived on Earth, not from the Council, from a coalition of species that called themselves the Free Worlds Alliance, led them. Met them in the same hall where she had once faced mockery, but this time she was not alone and afraid. This time she was surrounded by friends. Ambassador said, her golden eyes bright with emotion. On behalf of the Free Worlds Alliance, I thank you. What you did changed everything. You showed us that the Council's power was not absolute. You showed us that courage can exist in the smallest gesture. You reminded us that walking away is not defeat. Sometimes it is the beginning of victory. Felt tears forming in her eyes. She had spent so many months wondering if she had made a terrible mistake, wondering if her moment of defiance would bring destruction to her people. Instead, it had sparked something beautiful, a movement toward freedom that was spreading across the galaxy. I did not do anything special, she said. I just refused to accept what I knew was wrong. That is exactly what was special, said. Most beings accept, you did not. The Free Worlds Alliance offered Earth a true partnership, equal status, fair trade, mutual protection, not because humanity was powerful or advanced, but because they had earned respect through their integrity. Looked at and her oldest friends in this incredible journey, they were smiling through their own tears. What do you think? She asked them. I think, said, that this is what we were hoping for all along, even when we did not know it was possible. Nodded, we said no to slavery, now we can say yes to friendship. Turned back to and the assembled delegates of the Free Worlds Alliance. She thought about that moment in the Great Hall, the choice to stand up, to turn around, to walk away in silence. She had not known what would happen. She had just known that some things were worth standing for, even if standing meant standing alone. But she had not been alone. 50 humans had walked with her, and now thousands of species across the galaxy were walking with her too. Earth accepts your offer of partnership, she said, not as a junior or a senior, as equals, as friends. His feathered face broke into what might have been a smile. Then welcome humanity to a new galaxy, one that we will build together. Outside the hall, the sun was setting over Earth. The sky was painted in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere among those colors, stars were beginning to appear, stars that no longer felt cold and distant. They felt like neighbors, like possibilities, like home. Humanity had walked into the cosmos expecting to find its place in an existing order. Instead, they had helped create something new. A galaxy where the small and the young were not mocked for their limitations, but celebrated for their potential. Where silence could speak louder than words. Where walking away from injustice was the first step toward building something better. And it had all started with one woman who refused to kneel. Stood at the window and watched the stars come out. Behind her, the sounds of celebration filled the hall, but she was quiet, thinking about how close they had come to giving up, How easy it would have been to accept the Council's offer and survive in shame. They had chosen dignity instead, and dignity had changed the universe. The galaxy was different now. Humanity was different, and somewhere out there, and the old Council were learning a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate a species that knows when to walk away.